Hi dronies, and welcome back to another video. Today I've travelled just outside Coventry to a place called Kenilworth to talk about epic sieges and royal scandals at what was once the most formidable medieval fortress in the country. It was transformed into a absolutely amazing palace later by Robert Dudley for his Queen Elizabeth I. Today, of course, I am at Kenilworth Castle. So let's take a look around the place, talk a little bit about the history of the place, and then get the drone up there and have a look and see what it looks like from above, shall we? So until shortly, I'll see you soon. Kenilworth is among England's most magnificent castles. Once located in the centre of an extensive hunting estate and circulated by a vast artificial lake, it was a coveted possession for many powerful figures who owned and enhanced it, including John Gaunt, Henry V and Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester. Although the castle's defences were dismantled in 1650, the ruins gained fame particularly due to Walter Scott's 1821 novel, Kenilworth. At around 1120, Henry I granted a portion of his manor in Stoneleigh to his chamberlain and treasurer, Geoffrey de Clinton, likely to counter the influence of his neighbour, the Earl of Warwick. De Clinton retained the southern part of the land for the construction of a castle, a park and a mere, with the sandstone keep being built in the 1120s. He dedicated the northern portion to an Augustinian priory, which was established around 1124, allowing its canons to fish in the mere and graze their livestock in the park. Within a generation, this strategically vital castle came under royal control. Henry II garrisoned it during his son's rebellion in 1173 to 1174. Eventually taking full possession in the 1180s. In the early 13th century, King John invested around £1,100 in reinforcing Kenilworth, adding curtain walls, towers, and possibly enhancing the domestic quarters, along with work on the dam. In 1253, John's successor, Henry III, granted Kenilworth to his sister Eleanor and her influential husband, Simon de Montfort, 6th Earl of Leicester. The outwork, known as the Braes, may have been constructed during this period. De Montfort, a reformist, was killed at the Battle of Evesham in 1265, but his son, Simon the Younger, held Kenilworth against the king during an extraordinary 6-month siege, the longest in English medieval history. The garrison ultimately surrendered to the king on the 13th of December 1266. Immediately after the surrender, Henry III granted de Montfort's castle lands and titles to his second son, Prince Edmund, who had served as a commander during the siege. Edmund later became the first Earl of Lancaster, amassing a vast estate that would form the duchy. Kenilworth remained under the branch of the royal family for a century. In 1303, Edmund's son, Thomas, the second Earl, secured rights to enclose a vast hunting park to the south and west of the mere. He also commissioned the construction of a chapel between 1314 and 1322. By the early 14th century, Thomas had become estranged from his first cousin, Edward II, eventually leading to the open rebellion in the 1320s. After Thomas's capture and execution in 1322, Kenilworth briefly returned to royal control. However, just 4 years later, it was there that Edward imprisoned Thomas's brother, Henry III, Earl of Lancaster, and forced him to abdicate the throne. Kenilworth came into the possession of John of Gaunt, the fourth son of Edward III, after his 1359 marriage to Blanche, a Lancasterian heiress, following his second marriage in 1371 to the daughter of the King of Castile and Leon, and assuming his father-in-law's titles. Gaunt began an ambitious reconstruction of Kenilworth on a grand scale. Over the next 2 decades, extensive work was undertaken, including the construction of a magnificent Great Hall, along with remodelled apartments, services and kitchens. Gaunt also enclosed the garden and oversaw improvements to the bridges and the park. The names of several masons and surveyors involved in the project are recorded, with some having previously worked on Edward XI's rebuilding of Windsor Castle. When Gaunt's son ascended to the throne as Henry IV in 1399, Kenilworth became part of the Crown estate, where it remained for 150 years. During the 15th century, the castle was a favoured residence of the Lancasterian kings, who were attracted by its excellent hunting grounds. Henry V added the moated pavilion at the western end of the mere, known as the Pleasance. Most of the work during this period focused on repairs. The Tudor monarchs also made use of the castle. Henry VII constructed a tennis court, while Henry VIII dismantled a banqueting house at the Pleasance, reassembling it within the castle, and added a timber structure closing the inner ward to the east. One surveyor suggested that if this were rebuilt in sandstone, Kenilworth would be the best proportioned old building for its size in England. In 1553, John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland and de facto regent during the later years of Edward VI's reign, was granted Kenilworth. Dudley oversaw the construction of the existing stables before his execution later that year. In 1563, Elizabeth I granted Kenilworth to her childhood friend and favourite, Robert Dudley, John's son and soon-to-be Earl of Leicester. Elizabeth visited Kenilworth 4 times during her royal progresses, with her summer 1575 stay being the longest visit she made to any courtier during her reign. Dudley's extensive enhancements to the castle and its surroundings were undoubtedly aimed at impressing her. Dudley's landscape changes were particularly ambitious. On elevated ground north of the mere, which he acquired from the former priory, he created the Chase, an enclosed hunting park spanning about 320 hectares or 800 acres, with dramatic views. Leicester's Gatehouse, an elegant building constructed between 1571 and 1572, provided access to the park from the castle, while an impressive bridge, 183 metres or 600 feet long, carried hunting parties across the mere. Within the castle's inner court, Dudley also built the 4-storey tower block known as Leicester's Building, designed specifically for the Queen's use in 1572 and further improved for her in 1575's visit. He abandoned the park with bowers, arbours, seats and working plants, and laid out a privy garden in anticipation of the Queen's 1575 stay. Robert Langham, an official in Leicester's household, detailed the garden's layout after being granted access during the Queen's absence on her hunt. His vivid description has been corroborated by archaeological evidence. Nearly 2 decades after Leicester's death in 1588, Kenilworth was seized by the Crown when his son, Sir Robert Dudley, defied an order from James I to return from the continent. In 1604, Henry, Prince of Wales, purchased the castle and its estates, highlighting the significance the early Stuart monarchy placed on Kenilworth. After Henry's death in 1612, the future Charles I inherited Kenilworth and used it occasionally before entrusting its custody to his retainer, Robert Carey, Earl of Monmouth, in 1626. After the Civil War, Colonel Joseph Hawkesworth purchased Kenilworth Castle and its estate along with Carey's interest, on behalf of a group of parliamentary soldiers. He kept the castle for himself and divided the surrounding estate amongst his comrades. In the ensuing years, the mere was drained, trees were felled, and the castle's interiors were stripped and sold. Only Leicester's gatehouse remained in use, converted into a residence, likely for Hawkesworth. Writing in the 1660s, a Mr. Fortescue described the castle as utterly demolished, with only a few remains remaining as evidence of its former grandeur. Kenilworth was transformed into Castle Farm, where tenants, farmers, lived in Hawkesworth's former home. In 1665, Charles II granted Kenilworth to Lawrence Hyde, 2nd Earl of Clarendon, whose family retained ownership until the 20th century. Despite its changing fortunes, Kenilworth has long been a popular tourist destination. Curious travellers visited even before the Civil War, and by the 1770s, the demand was sufficient to warrant the publication of a guidebook. The Prince Regent himself visited in 1819. The castle's weathered grandeur, with stonework depleted first for road building and later for aesthetic purposes, captivated romantic visitors with picturesque appeal. Kenilworth gained international fame with the 1921 publication of Sir Walter Scott's novel Kenilworth, a tragic story centred around Queen Elizabeth, Robert Dudley and his wife Amy. In 1937, car manufacturer Sir John Siddeley purchased the castle from George Villiers, 6th Earl of Clarendon, and entrusted it to the Ministry of Works, along with a substantial fund for repairs. The castle then became a full-time visitor attraction. In 1958, Siddeley's son transferred the freehold to Kenilworth Town Council. The 20th century saw extensive repairs and improvements to the public access. This included opening of the Braes and a causeway as the main visitor entrance around 1960, the restoration and reopening of the gatehouse in 2006, the recreation of the Elizabethan Gardens in 2009, and the installation of viewing platforms in Leicester's building in 2014. So now that you know a little bit about the history of the place, let's get the drone up there and take a good look around at the place from above, shall we? See you soon. And that's Kenilworth Castle, guys. Another successful flight, and as usual, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, then I guess the other button works too. If you're new to the channel, then I would really appreciate it if you would like, subscribe and share to the channel to know about more videos when they come soon. And if you are a regular person that's usually here, then as always, I really appreciate you being here, guys. It really is appreciated. Now, guys, if you would like to buy me a drink as well, there will be links in the description to just buy me a drink. But what I am offering as well now is fan members section. So if you want to help promote me, outgrow the channel, get access to exclusive content and competitions and that kind of thing, then for £1, it's only £1 a month, you can become a member, and there's a link in the description of this video for that too. So until next time, dronies, I'll see you soon. Take care.